Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast. What a week for differentials. Can Game Week 37 be as exciting? My name is Joe.
My name is Seb.
Welcome, Seb. So we're guest list tonight. It's absolutely nothing to do with Andy forgetting to book anyone. Completely not that. It's because we just thought a quick turnaround. We'll get two people in. We can have a good old chat and natter about Game Week 37. So Seb, what's coming up in the show?
Well, Game Week 37 and 38, as you kind of alluded to, maybe a little bit there, special. Not only are they the end of the season, but we've got fans back. So you, my friend, are going to look at home fans, away fans. Does it make a difference? Maybe, maybe not. Do we even have the data to tell? I think is the real thing. We're also, of course, going to look at captaincy options. I don't believe there was a captaincy video this week, so I'm going to do my best David impression and throw some stuff at you. And we're also going to look at some of those quality mid-price midfielders. I'd say some of those are probably some of the best picks we've seen this season. Lingard, only recently, for example, Gundogan a little while ago, and we've just had Diego Jota injured. So can we find some good replacements for him? And of course, we'll do all the usual, looking at captains, transfers, rough with the smooth, and of course, our scores from this week.
Okay, well, let's crack on with that then. So, well, put it mildly, it's been quite a good week for you. Game Week 36, you just eased out of 70 points, which is pretty much double the average. So you must have had a pretty big green arrow. Do you want to run through your team and, how did you fare?
Yeah, no problem. So Hugo Lloris in goal with 8 points. Trent at the back with 6. Ayling with 6. Dean with 2. Salah captain with 20 points. Son with 3. Rafinha with 6. Gundogan with 5. Watkins with 5. Bamford with 1. And Kane, vice captain, with 8. I did also have Jota, who got subbed out, and Watkins came in. To be fair, before anything else, I will say I think there's a bit of luck in that. So I had KDB this time last week. I remember talking about Robertson, talking about a few other things. KDB got injured. I did KDB to Salah, pretty straightforward. Captain Salah. I would have captained Kane. That turned out very, very well. If I hadn't done that, I possibly would have tried to get Mahrez in, maybe an Antonio. Maybe I would have done Bamford to Antonio, so not much difference there. But I would have ended up with fewer points than I have done. So I think I got a little lucky in having that injury and having a very easy way to solve that injury.
But we did say last week this was a week where you were going to do well. Because there were loads of people like me who were down players. They needed to take hits just to get to 10, 11. And you weren't in that position. So you had the luxury there. So you played Jota, who was injured. So who came in for Jota?
Watkins came off the bench for
so
5
5 points. That's the value of having a bench. But
Indeed.
Those like me had no such luxury. Veltman sadly couldn't ease his sorry backside off the bench to replace Jota.
I mean, it's been a good couple of weeks. I think I got 142 or something in the free hit, and then straight into this for 70 has probably halved my rank, maybe a bit more.
Okay.
There's only 2 weeks left, so it's not going to be too impressive. But if I can sneak into the top 100k, that would be very lovely.
Okay, yeah, very good week, and well set up for the coming week as well. It's me, not quite successful, but I knew it wouldn't be. So it's one of these things where it's not like, oh, what went wrong? I know exactly what went wrong. I was players down, so I needed to take hits. I ended up wanting to get 11 out. I couldn't because of Jota. So if Jota had been fit, I would have got 11 out. So I went for, I got Pickford in. I got Pickford in for Mendy. I got Stuart Dallas in, 6 points. So very pleased about that. I got him in for the injured Maguire. Phillips, Joel Ward, basically the only Palace player who didn't score anything. Salah with 10 points, captain, very nice. Lingard, obviously nothing. Jota didn't play and couldn't be replaced. Son, blank, but 3 points. Chris Wood, a blank. Kane, coming nicely, and Antonio, a blank. So lots of blanks there. The good news is that if I hadn't have taken any hits, I would have got exactly the same. I earned 8 points from those, and so that cost me. But I've got rid of Iheanacho I didn't want. I got rid of Maguire, who's obviously not going to play again this season by the looks of it, and Mendy, too expensive for a goalkeeper. Didn't need him anymore for the double game week. So I've got 3 players I prefer in, and I'm well set up for the coming week. So I'm in a position where finally a bit of a better game week, hopefully, or at least hopefully I can get 11 out. So I'm not too bad with that. I'm still in the top 100k, and the red arrow whilst it was quite low, it was 47 points, but it was 39 taking into account those hits. My game week rank was 2.3 million, which, and I've had worse, so it's nowhere near a worse one for me. So I feel quite lucky with that. But as we'll see with some rough with the smooths, what a week for differentials. Just before we do that, I just wanted to mention about 2 or 3 weeks ago we had a unfashionable players list. We sort of revisited it and put it up. So this on our list, Chris Wood, been quite handy recently. Ferran Torres, well, predicted his haul. There it is. Mateus Pereira has been chipping away. Danny Welbeck was on our list of unfashionable players, and he's been really good recently. Martinelli at Arsenal, I'm still convinced he's got a haul in him in the next couple of weeks.
Martinelli's numbers are ridiculous, and yet I don't see him getting points. I was looking at it earlier for something we'll talk about in a bit, and I want to pick him, but I can't.
It's minutes. If you can get the minutes, he can do well. Also on that list, Joe Ellington. Which even I laughed at then, just even saying it. But when we put the list up, people go, I'm not getting Joe Ellington in. You're just making up these players. But there we go. He's been really good. And he's on penalties now. Bit of a surprise with Calum Wilson out. Apparently he can only take one if he scores one. It's a South American thing. First I've ever heard of that, according to Steve Bruce. I've never heard that before. But apparently, I think it's a Joe Ellington thing. So basically, he's on penalties for Newcastle. He takes it, he scores. But if there's another penalty awarded, as we saw in the last match, he gives it someone else. And it was Joe Willock in this case.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if obviously if it's a superstitious thing, it won't be this. But if it's I think, was it Gary Lineker used to tell a story about he had a couple of penalties in his locker. He would put it one side, he would put it the other side, and those are the penalties he took in matches. Yeah. There was a match where he took 2 penalties and it then went to a penalty shootout. And he was like, oh goodness, I've not practiced a third. I don't know what to do. I just wonder if I haven't looked at where Joe Ellington puts them. Maybe there are a couple of places, but maybe he just thinks I've got one routine, and once that's spent, that's spent.
Maybe it's the equivalent, the South American equivalent of wearing your lucky pants. I don't know. Maybe it's something like that. It's just a superstitious thing. Footballers are quite superstitious, so it's maybe something, maybe in that. So rough with the smooth. I'm looking forward to this one. Usually we just put 1 or 2 in, but I'm just going to go for loads because this was what a smooth week it was for people. Just to preempt it, Sheffield United teenager Jebison scoring his debut goal 4 months after being a substitute on loan at non-league Chorley. Okay, that happened. Scott Carson saving a penalty in his first top flight appearance for a decade for the league champions. Mitchell belittling his 3.8 million price tag with an absolutely huge haul, and a round of applause from his teammates, deservedly, I understand, afterwards. And best of all, Alisson, the goalkeeper for Liverpool, scored the winner in the final minute, and then paid tribute to his late father with that. Wow. So, well done to Indy Bard, who took a -4 to get Dallas and Mitchell in to field 11. He's 15 points up on that deal. De Royst had Diaz, Foden and Mahrez. Get the violins out. Oh no, he's thinking on Friday night, what am I going to do? Luckily, he had Mitchell, Alioski and Vidra on his bench. 25 points came off his bench and to replace that. That is rough with the smooth in action. Mention to Late Riser, David, FPL Rover, Shirash, Shivan, Praz and many more. They had an eagle eye on news as it emerged that Scott Carson was due to start for Man City. Massive surprise there. Straight into their free hit teams, and well done. They got 7 points, and they always remember that. That's something, what a move to make there. FPL Alex went one step further. He not only got Carson in, he captained him, so he got 14 points return. I would prefer to get 14 points from captaining Scott Carson after 11 years of not playing in the top flight than getting 20 points from Salah, who scores every week. I mean, he can tell his grandkids that. I can't tell my grandkids I got a Salah goal because they're just going, yeah.
You going to tell your grandkids about FPL, Joe? Really?
I will tell them that if I
would tell them about Carson.
Scott Carson, I would have told them about that. And there's more I would tell them about. There's more. Real Dude got 58 points from Alisson's 10-pointer there. Risk Reward FPL also had Alisson for getting that. Now, what was the last one? Tim Howard and a gust of wind? I can't remember the last top flight.
Paul Robinson got one in a similar way, didn't he? The kick, and then headers. Not Catter, sorry, Peter Schmeichel scored a volley, but a long time ago, obviously, because it was Schmeichel. Brad Friedel. I'm just remembering what they showed on.
There was a Carlisle United header at the last minute. I think Schmeichel might have done it somewhere.
There was one in Scotland recently. I know people pointed that out. But yeah, I mean, these are once in a career things.
It's always going to remember that. I mean, I still remember getting points from Nicky Shorey when he played for Reading. So if I remember that, you certainly remember Alisson's scoring the winner.
Nicky Shorey was good. He was on set pieces, wasn't he?
He was. He was a legend. Yeah. he was the Lundstrom of his time. Cameron forgot. This is his mate alerted me to this, but a guy called Cameron forgot to continue setting up his team. Sort of half did it. Somehow, in his tinkering, Harrison was his captain. So he also had Mitchell. Get this, we got 88 points. So by sheer accident, he got 88 points and rose 190,000 places to inside the top 300,000. So well done there. And Marceau...
Fair play for admitting that he forgot and not just going, I did this because I saw it.
It was his friend admitting it. So I don't know. See, Cameron might have actually been played an absolute blinder there. In which case, I've done him a disservice. Well done. Marceau, she transferred in Alisson for Schmeichel as part of a hit that also saw Rafinha come in. So she, not having Alisson, she actually got him in for his for the first goalkeeper penalty for ages, for years. Amazing. So she's going to always remember that.
Saw it coming. He had some goal threat. Overdue. He's not scored in a while.
But yeah, it was her husband that alerted me to this, and he said that she was really upset because when Alisson conceded. And then, wow, rough with the smooth in action. So let's have a look at the first topic, which is home advantage. So let's have a look here. Okay, so I've got a nice picture of some fans here. They are allowed back into matches following a series of trials, and so most notably sort of in cup competitions they've been looking at that. So it's not just home fans. The stadiums won't be full due to social distancing, but it could massively impact on games. Managers will surely play their best 11, I would have thought, in front of their fans. First time for many months. Also for teams with a good track record of home advantage, this could pay off. So we've got some community questions on this. Pog Bruno, who are the best home teams to target with fans now allowed back? And Sterling Archer asks, will home fans be a factor? So we can see here who's playing at home. Manchester United, they got Fulham. So we've got some Fulham stats in a bit, so we'll come to that. Southampton, they are at home to Leeds. Brighton are at home to Man City. Chelsea are at home to Leicester. Everton at home to Wolves. Newcastle at home to Sheffield United. Spurs at home to Villa. Crystal Palace at home to Arsenal. And Burnley at home to Liverpool. And West Brom, finally, are at home to West Ham. So what I've done is I've just done a sort of a snapshot of some of the comparison tools you can use in the members area. So what I couldn't do really was comparing fan home matches in 2019-2020 season with the fanless home matches of this season, because last season there was all sorts of home matches and then home matches with fans and then without fans, so it wouldn't be fair. So what I wanted to do was compare the last season we had, and although I'm comparing the 2018-19 season with now, and people say obviously these teams are different managers, different personnel, what they do is you've got a 38 game chunk, so you've got half of those games at home, so you've got a much bigger chunk of games to gauge how well fans are. So this is some examples that we've got here. So first one, I picked Manchester United because Fernandes is obviously a good captaincy, and Greenwood could be in the captaincy conversation against Fulham. So what I compare with 2018 and 2020, all their home matches here, and filtered by average, and it's broadly similar. So with or without fans, their underlying stats are really good. It may not appear that Manchester United have been that good this season because they maybe haven't been winning, but looking at where the shots are, I think there's been more shots outside the box in 2018, and in 2020 they're getting a bit closer to goal. So I don't know whether it's obviously different personnel, but I don't know whether having no fans in the audience in the crowd means that they're like a bit more willing to take that extra couple of yards run to get a bit closer to goal, and of course try and be a bit more accurate there.
It's super subjective, but you always feel like the crowd shouting "shoot" or whatever. That's got to make some sort of difference. Like you say, different players, maybe Pogba in a different position taking shots, but you've got to think that whatever it is, your adrenaline's a bit higher. You are more likely to rush into what the ultimate goal is of football, of trying to score a goal, than if all you can hear is your manager and your players shouting about the thing you practiced last week in training. Maybe you do work the system.
So I think that Manchester United are good at home with or without fans in terms of their potential for FPL points. But I do think, as you said, I think there is something in that. We've got all the fans shouting "shoot, shoot," so they do. Meanwhile, without the fans there, they think, "Oh, hang on a minute, I'm not going to do what these 10,000 prawn sandwich eating people are saying, baying at me. I'm gonna keep running, do the extra yards." So the likes of Mason Greenwood thinks, "No, I think I can get a bit closer here." Maybe there's something here, but here's a big difference. So I did Everton. So Everton at home have been awful this season. So I had a look at 2018 all home games compared to this season. Massive difference, absolutely huge. What we've got on the screen there, in terms of the stats summary, they've won 74% overall in 2018, and that drops to 26% overall. The difference there, the stats was so much better in 2018 at home compared to 2020. I know there are differences, different manager, different personnel, all those kinds of things, but it does show, and I think we've spoken before to Connor, FPL Prince, about this. There's something about home games, and you can see it when you just see. I mean, if you go to Goodison, but also just watching on Match of the Day or whatever, the roar when they play the Z-Cars music, the roar at Goodison is absolutely huge. It takes your breath away, and that must have an impact on them in a favourable way, I think. So I think that's interesting because Everton got beaten by Sheffield United at home. So the narrative is Everton are absolutely awful at home, and that has played out this season. But they're going to have fans back here, and as you can see in 2018, the fans really helped. So I wonder if Calvert-Lewin could do all right.
Everton's a really interesting one. We spoke about it last week with Ben, and saying how, if you're playing, say, Man City, for example, and you're expected to defend, maybe it can give you that little extra burst you need. Likewise, if you're expected to attack, maybe they do want you to push forward. I think with this whole conversation, obviously we know it's 2018, this is quite speculative, but it's the best we've got, so we're trying to put something together. Maybe comparing how people finished that season. So Everton in 2018-19 finished in 8th with 54 goals scored, 46 against. This season against Wolves, so you would expect them to attack, but maybe we've seen them be slightly poorer, I think, off the top of my head, when they've been expected to really impose themselves on a game. I mean, Sheffield United, for example, although I know their home form's been poor, especially defensively, I think 2 clean sheets or something. But it might be a case of, when the fans come back, it's really going to depend how the team have done this season and what their expectations are. So to use my own club, for example, Leeds, it can be an intimidating place, both for opposition and our own players. When we're doing badly, a lot of players have said, we do worse. Like, we prefer going away because we don't have the fans shouting at us. So if you get a group of fans coming back to, say, Everton, who I think have done well this year, but maybe they're expecting to see 3-4 goals against Wolves, and it's 0-0 at half-time, 0-0 after 60 minutes. Does that maybe turn? I hope it doesn't. It's the first time they've been back in so long. But frustration can boil over, right? It's an emotional place.
I think so. I mean, when I watch Palace games, it looks as if being home fans be an advantage. But when I looked at the stats with Palace, they're no better with or without fans at home. They're still pretty awful, to be honest. So I just wonder with them, it's just whether having fans there just makes it a better place. Rather than they actually perform better in terms of FPL. Here's Spurs ones as well. So I had a look at Spurs. Obviously different home 2018, I think then. But as we can see there, they were marginally better and the range of shots. So they were doing these long range shots more, and they're getting a bit closer to goal. So we're seeing that familiarity again, that pattern again with Manchester United. They're shooting
in the three samples. We have the same pattern, to be fair.
Yeah.
Shots from further out. That might be an interesting one to explore.
I'm wondering if that is a thing. So this could mean that I think it's going to be two. We've just got 2 home games coming up, so it's too short. But looking back to next season with fans back, I think what it could be, if you're looking for any trends, it could be that those players that are better at shooting, that are good for shooting from distance, will prosper more with the fans. When the fans say shoot, and they do shoot, well then it goes in. You know, a Dele Alli howitzer, something like that. But if they've got that extra run towards goal, maybe it doesn't work out, or maybe it does work out. So what we're seeing there is, they're shooting more often in the box and closer range, and that is interesting. That's interesting. It depends on which players are doing it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting with Tottenham. Not as stark as Everton. And once again with Newcastle, I thought I'd go for Newcastle. They got on our fixture ticker, they've got the 2 best fixtures, and they've got Sheffield United at home next. Obviously Newcastle fans can be, obviously wonderful people, but they could be a hindrance because they don't like their owners too much, a bit like Manchester United. So maybe there will be a bit of booing, a bit of baying going on. And as we can see here, although 2018 at home, Newcastle performed better there with 61% compared to 39% with this season. So I think we can see, with Newcastle, with Spurs, with Manchester United, there's on the whole they perform better in the stats with fans there. But with Everton, the difference is stark. They just need their fans there. It's an extra, the old cliche, the extra player there. But anyway, I just did that as a snapshot. If anyone's watching and listening and they are members, do have a look in there. Do have a look at the team comparison tool. Just do it yourself, really. Just compare it to last season if you want. I didn't think for the point of view of this it was that fair because there were so many games with and without fans, and I wasn't comparing these 2 different scenarios. But what do you think with home advantage? You mentioned about Leeds as well. So, I mean, I can't imagine the Leeds fans are going to turn on them after this season.
Oh no, quite the opposite.
No, they're going to marry them.
Yeah, I think it's. I know some Leeds fans who are fortunate enough.
It's going to be a massive man bun wedding.
a big party for sure. I mean, it helps that our season is, there's places to play for, and we can continue to push up the table. But obviously we're safe, and obviously we're not getting like Champions League or something. So the last few matches here are, I think, more about probably putting in performances, keeping it going, entertaining the fans, if you will. We also want to continue with systems. I don't expect them to rotate much, if at all, for example. But I think the fans are going to be there to enjoy themselves. And I think the players will want to give it to them. I mean, the last time our players saw our fans was when we celebrated getting promotion outside the ground. I mean, our fans shouldn't have been there, but they were. And the players went out for a little bit. There was stuff on social media and whatnot. I think the players and the fans probably want that connection back, right? It's time to celebrate our promotion. We haven't been able to do that yet. Likewise, Liverpool haven't been able to celebrate their title. Their scenarios may be a bit different because they're not doing as well this season, but this is the first time they get to celebrate with the players probably.
Just a question in the chat. A couple of people were asking about what the percentages mean. Obviously, you can see they add up to 100. So it's sort of the ratio of stats. So what this has done is a stats summary. It's compiled the things like shots in the box or penalty area touches and whatever. All of those stats. It's come up with a bunch of key stats there, and it's comparing the percentage. So essentially, of those stats, the majority of those in comparison to the other season that we're looking at in this case, we're in, say, for example, so we're looking at Newcastle United, so there's 61% better than and 39% is the flip side there. So obviously, if they were looking better this season, it would be reversed. So as we can see there, in a nutshell, 2018 better at home than 2020. There we go. So
I was just looking at goals outside the box for you, considering our, massive speculation that maybe players will shoot more when there's fans there. Again, so many other factors, so please take this with a pinch of salt. Please go do your own research. But 2020-21, so this season, goals outside the box, and of course there are a couple of games to go, but it's good enough. Leicester are top with 16, Leeds with 14. We've seen Dallas do a couple, Bamford do a couple. Tottenham with 11, Villa City with 10, United with 10. Then we start dropping into single digits, and the median looks to be about 6, 7. In 2018-2019, Man City are top, interestingly, Man City of all people, with 19 goals outside the box. Arsenal and Tottenham with 15, Southampton with 14, Palace, Leicester 11, Chelsea 10, Everton 10. And the median here, it's only just higher, looks to be about maybe 8, closer to 9 perhaps, for the mean especially. It's so marginal, but the maximum number of goals scored is both higher. The median looks to be higher. The mean definitely looks to be higher. So while that is, not nearly enough research to say, based on what we've got there, more goals were scored outside the box in 18-19 in front of fans than they have been this season.
Yeah.
So taking it forward, you never know. You've got to identify those players who are going to convert those goals, maybe.
And I mean, in the past, seasons past, identifying those players. So what you're looking at there as well is, once we can have the benefit of fans back and those long-range players can go up against teams that are poor at defending long-range efforts, then you can start to have a bit of fun with that and get some good players in. I remember one of the classics looking at these ones was getting Kabay in when he played for Newcastle. He was amazing at set pieces and out of the box shots, speculative shots from out of the box. He was up against West Ham, who at that time were the worst at conceding those goals from those long range. And hey presto, he scored a brace. So I got him in and he scored a brace. So I'll always remember that because that was quite good. I remember Coutinho is another one, and Ericsson. These were all great players for that. So you want.
Would it be fair to say that maybe you've just named players there who are on set pieces? I think some of them on penalties, and maybe because of that have got a good shot on them and are also hitting things from range. 2018-19 Man City, Kevin De Bruyne top.
Yeah.
Maybe for goals outside the box for them, I don't know. But he would have been on some set pieces as well, not penalties then, of course. Thinking Crystal Palace have 11 goals outside the box in 2018-19. Was that perhaps Milivojevic scoring penalties and scoring long shots? Maybe the way to get that player, because long shots are real hard to predict. But if you can find a player who's got set pieces, maybe penalties would be brilliant. Someone who's going to get consistent returns, but just add to that with those odd long shot goals. Maybe that does push them into the realms of FPL interest.
I mean, they are harder to score, but over a season they can be gold because these are the sort of players that maybe get overlooked. Tielemans, now the FA Cup final wasn't in FPL, obviously, but nevertheless, it was pointed out in the live chat. I think it was Harry pointed out. The fans were saying, shoot at him. And he was from distance, and he did, and he scored the winner. And he's good at scoring those sort of shots. So there could be something in this. Tielemans in front of home fans. There's an option.
I really like that idea of a player, just as I was just saying, like on set pieces. So we're going to tick over with creating chances, but then have that cherry on top of maybe scoring a long range shot.
Yeah.
I think they're probably quite, I mean, not a giant surprise. They've probably been FPL relevant in the past, but maybe more so in the future again.
Yeah, definitely. So it's quite interesting. I think with some of these stats, you can pick and choose them. I think when it comes down to it, some teams, they're just simply good. And some teams are just simply bad.
Yeah.
But I do think you get examples like Everton where they definitely need fans. And I think with a lot of other teams, they can be marginally better. But yeah, I think this is, I don't know, I haven't really thought it occurred to this the long range heroes. But something for definitely next season. We'll have a few more matches to...
One thing to point out as well, obviously, we've got 2 games left. Trying to predict a long shot goal in 2 games is very difficult.
That's what I mean.
Maybe not just yet.
in game week 1 next season, we've got 38 game weeks ahead of us. We can say, get Tielemans at home against this X defence. You might get something over these 10 games. You might get 2 long range goals out of him if you're
absolutely.
Lucky. Which would be amazing if you did. But yeah, if we can predict, well, you never know. Let's move on to the captaincy. So I guess this is what brings in home and away. My feeling is to captain someone at home, 37 and 38. I just feel it's going to make a difference. Just that extra, maybe, well, as we've seen, an extra 5 or 10% in some cases, an extra like 50% in Everton's case. But yeah, captaincy. Do you want to take this?
Absolutely. So I think this is probably a good week for a lot of options. We've got Fernandes at home to Fulham. We have Salah away to Burnley and Kane at home to Wolves. All of which in any other week might be our standout option, but they've all got those matches in the same week. So there's probably a few choices there. I think there might be a few differentials further down our list as well. We've got a few questions on the topic, which hopefully we can answer as we talk. So from HVT, it's a big week for the captaincy. Lots of good options, but who to pick? Hopefully we'll get into that. The suspended one asks Kane, Bruno and Salah, all mentioned above. Look, great options, but are Son and Greenwood good differential captains? Got some numbers on those, so I'll share those in a bit as well. And Vishnaz asks, is Cavani a good punt? Does he come into the captaincy debate? And I know, Joe, you've got worse defences and then some XGI for us as well.
I've got the players up at the moment, but I can move on to whichever you want, really. I've got the.
Why don't you? Sorry, mate. Go on, after you.
I was going to say these are for expected goal involvement, last 6 matches. These stats are on the screen, so we can talk about them or we can talk about teams, whichever you want.
No problem. Well, I've combined the two a little bit. So, but rather than slinging a lot of numbers at you all at once, we can take them a few in turn. So I guess the top options being Kane, Salah, Fernandes, they appear pretty high up on our list there. We've got Kane with 5.72 XGI in the last 6, Salah with 4.8 and Fernandes with 4.19, which is just behind Iheanacho and Jota. But obviously Jota is now out, and I would say Iheanacho maybe less of an option with the fixtures they've got. What I've done to compare with the fixtures they've got remaining, which is important with just 2 matches, is do a super rudimentary calculation, but it's kind of satisfying because it results in a sort of believable FPL score in terms of magnitude. So I've taken the players' XGI and I've taken the team they're playing, their expected goals conceded, and added them together. So just for those top 3 we had there, Kane is 5.72 plus 8.4, which is the XGC for the team he's playing, which is 14.12. Salah ridiculously is 14.11. And Fernandes is just behind on 13.8. So those aren't real stats. I've just added some numbers together to kind of give myself a list. It's not expected points, nothing like that. But it's a bit of a ratio, a nice.
It's the startings of an algorithm to predict a captain.
Exactly. You want to build some weightings in there. Obviously, Fernandes and Salah are midfielders, but I think it shows what we already know. They're incredibly close. So maybe it's time to look at the opposition they're playing. Okay. So lovely. You've got some things there for us.
Yeah, this is this. I've sorted by expected goals conceded last 6 matches. So if you want to run through who's really bad, I've got the really bad ones at the top.
So I'll give you those then. So we've got Newcastle with an XGC expected goals conceded of 12.08. They've conceded 12 goals too, which is worth noting. There's a few on here that have a difference. So either a bit of luck, good strikers, or a good or bad goalkeeper. West Brom have an XGC of 10.82, conceded 11 goals. Sheffield United conceded 10 for an XGC of 10.55. Southampton, 10 goals conceded from 10.42 XGC. West Ham, 9 goals conceded, so an improvement on their 10.31 XGC. And then I'll round us off with the last little few here. Crystal Palace, 13 goals conceded from 9.78 XGC. So either good strikers or bad goalkeeper. Fulham.
Well, we know he's bad goalkeeper, don't we? Because we spoke about that last week. Guita.
Absolutely. And I think in the double, they kept 1 clean sheet and then conceded a bunch of goals. Yeah. Guita got a clean sheet and didn't really get any save points. He's kind of what we expected.
He's statistically the worst goalkeeper. He costs teams goal. He costs Palace goals.
Quite possibly. And then so Fulham as well there with 12 goals conceded from an XGC of 9.7. So again, poorer. Burnley, 11 conceded from an XGC of 9.31. And the last one, because it's my team, Leeds, 5 goals conceded from an XGC of 9.25. So we've probably been very lucky, and we have Meslier.
You got a good goalkeeper, yeah. No,
absolutely.
That's Burnley style, or Burnley of old. That's the Nick Pope effect, the Tom Heaton, whoever they have in goal. That's just the way.
Well, I mean, speaking of Burnley in the last match, I mean, was it Vidra who had an excellent opportunity that Meslier made a very good save for? So, I mean, maybe we can talk about that a bit more later, but an impressive win for Leeds at 4-0, but probably ended up a bit more impressive than we deserved. Yeah. I think the XG for the game was about 2.5 to 1.5 or something. So the players that are playing those teams, we've gone through Kane, Salah, Fernandes there for their own. So I looked a little bit deeper because on this, rudimentary scale I've come up with, they're very, very similar. So looking at Villa for where they've conceded their chances, it's 24 from central locations, 20 from the left, and 27 from the right, which is where they've conceded most. So that would be Spurs' left. So maybe a Heung-min Son shout there. So to use Son in these little metrics here, we had that question on him as well. He has 2.78 expected goals, and obviously the same XGC for the opponent he's playing, for 11.18 altogether, which is a fair bit behind. And his minutes per XGI as well are 194.2. So he's really dropped off since Bale has come into it. Interesting, though, Bale didn't show here, so he's further behind. So it really does look like your Spurs option is Kane for me. Maybe a bit thinking, Son's on the left. But just watching the matches, I don't know about you, Joe, but I'd say Son's probably a lot less involved than he's been recently.
We've been seeing with the stats, he's become more creative and Kane has become the one. We did see a couple of weeks ago that Kane's, he disallowed goal for his toenail, hit the bar twice, another disallowed goal. And, that looked like Kane was edging back to being Kane. And hey presto, he indeed got his goal. And he could have scored another one as well. I think he hit the post again. So he's getting closer and closer. He's certainly getting points. He's the one motivated by the golden boot. Him and Salah, again, neck and neck. So, they're going to be going for that. It's reported in the press today that Kane wants to leave Spurs. So this could indeed be the next home game, could be indeed his last home game. May not be. He may stay there. Might end up being like in a Lionel Messi situation where he wants to, where he's just forced to stay. But nevertheless, I think that there's that motivation of wanting to score in front of fans and get that golden boot. It says to me, in terms of that motivation, in terms of teams to score goals, it's really tight to get to fourth. Leicester, Chelsea and Liverpool, they haven't just got to win, they've got to score lots. This was the old Ferguson mentality with Manchester United. It was worth an extra win almost to get that, to get all of those goals, to win on goal difference, because it can be really tight. And if you're looking at winning the title or getting, in this case, getting fourth, I think they're going to need to absolutely batter Burnley and Palace, Liverpool. And the same token, with the motivation that Harry Kane's got, if Salah's starting to pile the points in there for those last two games, Kane's got to do it as well. Meanwhile, Chelsea have got to score loads of Leicester, so I think we're going to see a lot of goals, and I don't think we're going to see that many clean sheets.
Yeah, we mentioned those two teams, and I think they've both got something to play for, clearly, and those two players have got something to play for, which I think is an interesting comparison with Fernandes, because Man United probably less to play for, and Fernandes just going for, eye test reasons to be converting these into goals. Stats-wise, Fernandes doesn't come out too bad at all against Kane and Salah. But when we actually watch him play, we felt for a little while now, he's just not maybe had the same swagger, the same involvement, whatever it is. The stats tell us maybe he is still quietly involved. But I guess it's not just, if the stats are maybe telling us, how they're just ticking along, I feel like Kane and Salah could explode and exceed their stats at any moment because they really have something to go for there. So if you combine those two things, I think it's clearly Kane and Salah ahead of Fernandes, with the exception that Fulham. Yeah. And I know you mentioned in the last four, they've looked very poor.
So, these worst defences are last six. I haven't put it up on the screen, but last four I sorted it by big chances conceded. And Fulham are the worst. So they've shot up from here. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're seventh worst in terms of that XG conceded. But then sorted by big chances. They're absolutely appalling. And over the last four, so they are the worst now. They're down and out, and that coincides with them being relegated. So they've given up. they've had it, and that tips it over slightly to me with Fernandes, because game week 38, I think there's going to be rotation. Home fans are there. Game week 38, there's going to be rotation, because that's going to be before the Europa League final. Game week 37 is going to be in front of fans against a team that have just given up. So for me, I've got Kane, Salah and Fernandes. Currently I'm thinking Fernandes, but I'm nowhere near ruling Salah, Kane out. It's one of those ones where it could chop and change, but I think all three are really good. Fernandes just has the slight edge for me. Edge.
So I would possibly push towards Kane and Salah for the reasons I mentioned. But if we are speaking Man United then, and you mentioned Fulham being poor, not only are they poor for big chances conceded, but their XGC, which obviously there would be a very high correlation with big chances conceded, they're second worst in the last four with a 7.73, which has gone up a lot from the last six. As you mentioned, they're kind of lower mid-table for that. Two other options then at Man United, a couple of which we had questions about, Greenwood and Cavani. So if you're not quite fancying Fernandes, here comes out at 11.34 and Cavani comes out at 12.19, which for comparison with Fernandes, he got a 13.8. Minutes per XGI for those players, got 109.1 for Fernandes. And then more importantly, maybe for Greenwood and Cavani, because we don't know if they'll play 90s, 121.1 for Greenwood and 111.6 for Cavani. Worth noting as well that Greenwood's actually got poorer the last few than he did a little while ago. But the last thing maybe to pay attention to here is over the season, Fulham have conceded 87 chances from the centre, so probably where you'd expect Cavani to be, maybe Fernandes moving into. 84 from their right flank, but 118 from their left flank, which if we think Greenwood starts, we think he probably starts there, and we know the type of goal he's going to score. It's not too dissimilar to the Mo Salah, come inside, try and put it across the goalkeeper. So maybe there's a little edge for Greenwood there. And of course, he has the advantage of being that differential pick.
He's going to have the crowd saying shoot at him. Will he need that extra yard to get in the box? But I don't think he would, because Greenwood's really good. He's really lethal. And we'll come to it in a sec with Jota replacements. And obviously, he's definitely in the conversation there because he's of a similar price. But I think there, with Son and Greenwood, you've got a very good impression of David there, because that's exactly the kind of thing he would match up. Left weaknesses down there, left, and whoever's playing on the right, and say, vice versa. So
I listened to your captain videos. Can you tell?
So I think we've got, and this sounds, people want us to come up with, this is the person who's the best captain. Salah, Kane, Fernandes, Greenwood, and Son are all really good captaincy shouts. And if I saw you captain any of them, I would think fair play. For me personally, I'm gonna put my head on the block and say Fernandes is my favoured one. He's the one I had my eye on for the last couple of weeks. If anything, I feel more confident in Fernandes. I think they've had a longer rest. A lot of teams are playing 3 times in 8 days, is it? They're just playing twice, apart from the final, obviously. So I would think it was game week 38 is going to be the mass rotation one, because they're away. And it's just that security of starts. Fulham, if I went Salah and Kane, it wouldn't be so bad. I know people want, to be more certain, but I'm 90% certain I'm going to captain Fernandes.
I mean, it might be fair to say out of those top 3, Kane, Salah, Fernandes, you could expect similar points from all of them, give or take. So maybe that isn't where you find your edge this week. A few other players I'd looked at this. Speaking of Salah, just for Liverpool as well. Looking at Mane, obviously Jota is out now. So Mane comes out with 11.1 on this nonsense metric, which is 3 less than Salah. So, he's got a lot, 1.79 XGI to 4.8. So that's where the difference is, obviously. It's not great, and a lot worse per minute as well, not far off double. So while he has had those few chances recently, we know he's not getting as many as Salah, and his conversion looks poorer. So I think Salah wins that out. Anything can happen in one match, but Salah makes sense to me. Also worth noting against Leeds, when Rodrigo came on, maybe speak about Leeds again in a bit later, but the reason he was possibly able to score those great goals he scored is the space Burnley were giving him behind. We saw Harrison with those balls into massive space.
Wasn't it?
Well, what does Salah like? Running into that exact same space. If Burnley leave that, now they may not push on against Liverpool like they did against us, but if Burnley leave that, I think Salah could really be in there. The other thing I just wanted to look at here as well is Trent Alexander-Arnold. So, of course, first to say, you need a clean sheet from Trent, really, to be safe captain. Liverpool are 9th in the league for XGC over the last 6 with 8.07 expected goals conceded. So not great from that perspective. And Trent's XGI is actually 2.49, which is pretty good actually for a defender. But the thing that caught my eye, if you really wanted to punt it, is that Burnley have conceded 82 crosses from their left-hand side, which is the most in the league by a mile. And that's where you'd expect Trent to be putting them in. So maybe there's an assist there for him.
As ever, I'm Trentless, and as ever, he's the player I'll fear every week. I mean, I don't actually fear it. I mean, I was Calvert-Lewin-less last week. I didn't mind. Bamford, I didn't mind. All that lot, didn't mind. But Trent, I fear every week. And he comes away with, they concede, but he comes away with 6 points. I consider myself lucky because he's got 20 points in him each week.
They're genuinely. Maybe not this season. Obviously, the season when he got over 200 points. But there genuinely must be a half-decent tactic where you leave the captain on for a whole season and you don't do too poorly. Just because, especially if they defend better.
On live FPL website that Ragabolly does, he's got these little emojis next to the players that you don't own, the one on my particular one for Alexander Arnold is not only skull and crossbones, it's like, it's got nuclear explosions. It's basically, if he hauls, I'm gone. So
why have you not brought him in? Is it just not worked for your team?
It's what we came back to. See, on my wild card, I decided to invest more in attack on Game Week 31, and I've only had one red arrow since then, and I've only had 2 since January. So that's worked out. But the sacrifice I've made, so some people have sacrificed not having Fernandes, not having Salah, not having Kane. My sacrifice was no Alexander Arnold. And I regret that in a way, in that getting to Alexander Arnold, given the blanks and the doubles and other issues, is really hard. Moving up from a 5 million or so defender to a 7.5 with, and retaining Kane and Salah, it's really hard. So I've got Phillips, who bizarrely got me an assist in the double game week, which it was unexpected for Liverpool. So I've got the Liverpool. So if Liverpool get a clean sheet, I get my 6 points because Phillips is nailed on. It's just that the attacking threat that Alexander offers and the bonus that comes with it. But can I? It's that the FPL cliche. You rip up your team to get them. But yeah, I would. I would actually be ripping my team up to get him in, and I'd just look elsewhere. But it's just one of those things.
It definitely feels, I guess, defender transfers with 2 weeks left just don't feel that sexy, do they?
I think if a lesson to be learned, I think next week we might talk about lessons to be learned and things. I think one of those would be on a wild card or in game week 1, which is essentially a wild card. I think I will adopt my usual strategy of price points more and have basically the most expensive not goalkeeper. I'm fine with cheap ones there. Most expensive defender, most expensive midfielder, and most expensive forward, and work down. Say Kane it doesn't work out, easy, move him on. Trent doesn't work out, easy, move him on. But if they start hauling, it's really hard. It's really hard to get them back in. I mean, people without, say, Salah, for example, it's going to be tricky for a lot of people there. So, one of those things.
Even if you're not as precise as you are there, that idea of having 2 big hitters at least, so you can either split the money or have. I mean, we're looking at teams, say Salah, Fernandes, De Bruyne, whatever it is, so you can have some of those. Before we move on, one last player for you then. So a little differential. By definition, this is differential. I do not expect them to have a higher percentage chance of scoring big points than, say, Kane, Salah, or Fernandes, of which Salah would be my choice and Fernandes would be yours. But the team playing West Brom this week, admittedly away from home, so maybe you have to take that into account. And I do believe West Ham have been better at home this year as well, so maybe those aren't perfect. But looking at the XGC conceded over this period, West Brom are only second to Newcastle with a 10.82. They've conceded ever so slightly more than they would expect at 11, but that's less than 0.2. So you can expect them to concede what they're going to concede. The player who's put in the best numbers for West Ham recently is Antonio. He has 3.94 XGI over the last 6. If you combine that with West Brom's XGC for this metric that I came up with half an hour ago, he has a 14.72, 123.4 minutes per XGI. And then crucially again, West Brom just conceding chances from everywhere. 36 central, 24 from the left, 31 from the right. Antonio's only 8% owned. If you're looking at 40% Salah, 40% Kane, I don't think you have a better chance of Antonio scoring more. But if you need to throw caution to the wind in this penultimate week, I think Antonio could be there for you. I know people thought he looked sluggish last time, but everything but that goes in his favour for me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I got Antonio in, because I just felt, well, if fit, you always have to say, if fit, he can do well. But I do think for the final 3 fixtures, I think of the 3, Brighton was the toughest. And so I think the next 2 fixtures are good for Antonio. For me, he's not in the captaincy conversation because I've got so many other options. But it's if I didn't have Kane, for example, then yeah, he would be in that conversation. I mean, most of the season. Please.
Yeah.
No. What were you going to say? Most of the season.
Oh, sorry, mate. Most of the season, I would advocate going, for want of a better phrase, safe with your captain. You know, we know who we think is going to score the most points, so just captain them. But with 2 weeks to go, maybe you're 10, 20 points behind a leader who you know is going to captain Kane or Salah, and your teams are really similar. You've got limited options available to you. Maybe someone like Antonio is where you get those 10 or 20 points from. You probably don't, but maybe you do.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to look at Jota picks, because Lingard is in the conversation here. Now, I was all set to get rid of Lingard, and then Jota got injured, so now I have another issue. So Lingard is sort of being promoted from the exit to the bench for me. So Jota being injured, the speculation that was known by Klopp before the press conference that he had, so rather cheekily didn't tell us. So Jota out for the rest of the season. It's a minor injury. Out for the season sounds harsh, but he's basically out for a week. It could be more. But that's the end of it this season. So we've got to move him on. But there are plenty of replacements. So there is an opportunity here. So what I've got up here, once again, gone for last 6 matches here, and I've gone for I sorted it by expected goal involvement, and looking at here, there's a whole bunch of options here. I've pulled no punches here. Fashionable, unfashionable, they're all in. Martinelli is the top in terms of expected goal involvement. I am convinced this lad, if he can play, if he can get the minutes, he's got a haul in him in the last couple of matches. Martinelli is an option at 4.9. And then you've got Pereira at West Brom, always an option, always in the points. Harrison at Leeds. He is among those leading the charge for me to replace Jota. El Ghazi, 5.2 at Villa. Do not overlook El Ghazi. Mason Greenwood, 7.2. He's next up in terms of expected goal involvement. What's interesting about Mason Greenwood is, hey, look at those goal attempts. 19. Shots inside the box, 16. Shots on target, 10. These are huge. He's only, is he 12 or something? It's quite incredible stats there. So ordinary.
You know what I like about Greenwood as well, if I may, just before we move on, is we're talking about now the last couple of weeks. So it's only 2 weeks. You've got so little time for this to play out. Not only, could you go, oh, he's got this over the season, but I don't know what he'll get in 2 weeks. So you need a bit of luck. But what maybe helps with that? Someone who we think traditionally has a good conversion rate. So a player who, dare I say, Antonio, who I've just bigged up, but we know he underperforms his XGI normally. He underperforms his XG. So even if in these 2 weeks he gets massive numbers, there's probably a better than average chance that he underperforms. Greenwood, we think maybe is the opposite of that. So if he does get good numbers, we think he's probably quite good at converting them. Yeah. So I think that just gives you that little edge in such a small sample of matches left. You want someone who's clinical.
Yeah. I can just about afford Jota to Greenwood. So people might say, you fool, why don't you just do it? Even with a price rise for Greenwood tonight, for example, I can still do it. But let's move down the list more. In terms of expected goal involvement, Mason Mount always plays, always gets points. He is a player I'm very, very much considering game week 1 next season, and just bung him in there because he's just getting points. He just gets points, not 20 points, but he's just chipping away 6-8 points a week, which is what you want. Then we move down the list. We've got Willock, which is really interesting at Newcastle, 4.7. And he's sort of second on penalties once Joe Linton scored his one. Ferran Torres is a player was in our list 2 or 3 weeks ago. Torres is there. If you want to second guess the Pep Guardiola team sheet, Torres is there. Rafinha, he is next up in terms of expected goal involvement. All these expected goal involvement with these players here, they're all between about 3.5 and just over 2. So there's not a great deal about them. So when I say, Rafinha's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th in that list, doesn't mean like, there's a massive gap, a massive cut-off. He's still in the running. He's had 13 chances over his last 6. 10 goal attempts, 7 inside the box, 2 on target. And then at the bottom of the list, I've just put him in there. Lingard, no assists, 5 chances created. So that compares with, say, Mason Mount, Harrison, Torres, Rafinha, all over 10, all over, more than double, almost Pereira, 3 times as much as that. Goal attempts, though, over the last 6. So this isn't very recently. And, we've seen a difference there that goal attempt has gone down if you want to, hone that in the last 2 or 3. So yeah, looking at that list, there's a lot of choice, a hell of a lot of choice. If I had 2 transfers, I would do Lingard and Jota out. But for me, this is just me, so I'm going to say, for me, it's between Harrison and Raphinha. Because I really like Leeds fixtures, I really like Leeds players, I really like Harrison and Raphinha. I think I've already got Stuart Dallas. I would love to get both of them in. I think they're great to go along with Stuart Dallas. And the other reason is because that will give me enough money in Game Week 38 to get Mane in for Fernandes, who I think is going to be benched ahead of the Europa League final and not a player I would captain anyway. And I would go into Game Week 30, Salah and Mane. And you talk full circle, you talked about my fear of Alexander Arnold. Mane, to soothe my brow, would help. So I look forward to like a big thumbs up on live FPL for my Mane pick. But I'm quite looking forward to that if I can. So yeah.
So you would end up with Raphinha and Harrison and Salah and Mane?
Well, no, I won't, because I've run out. I'm going to run out of games. I haven't got Raphinha or Harrison. I will get one of them.
Oh, sorry. So you'd want to. I thought you said you were going to.
If I had the transfers, I think they're the 3 best to get. Dallas, Raphinha, Harrison.
For the record, I really like those 4. If anyone's in a position to get those 4, I quite like that. Doubling up on teams with good fixtures, good expected points. You're probably in a position many aren't though as well. You've got only Dallas from Leeds at the moment. I know a lot will have 3 Leeds. I do myself. So Harrison possibly not a consideration for many of us. He's slightly higher than Raphinha in that table. He's obviously returned better than Raphinha recently, especially if Raphinha isn't getting set pieces back before the end of the season, which would surprise me because his delivery is excellent. Dallas and Harrison's delivery has been good too though. But I guess most people probably don't want to be doing Raphinha sideways to Harrison. With 2 matches left, that's probably not the way to maximise your exposure to points, going from one good midfielder for the same team to another good midfielder from the same team.
Yeah.
So for me, I've got Jota there too. My initial thought was Lingard. I know he's down there. I know you're looking to get rid of him. I'll explain why, and I think I'll explain why I won't do it. But it shows that initially, maybe because I had in my head he did so well recently, I didn't get involved in that. I want to get me some of that. I can finally do it. It's been an easy transfer for me, and I like Antonio. Well, there's my West Ham exposure. Good fixtures. We just talked about how I think they could do well against West Brom, quite possibly. But Lingard has really fallen off in pretty much every sense of the phrase. So in game weeks 22 to 32, which is quite a long period, it's when he got pretty much all his points this season. He had 8 points per game, which is huge. 5.11 XGI, which is 6th, but got 9 goals and 3 assists from that, which is 1st and 4th respectively, which is very, very impressive. 0.5 XGI per 90 there. So he was putting in really good stats and performing even better than that. So basically the best you could want from any player at any point. In game weeks 29 to 32, which is just the end of that period, just after he missed 1 match, it's probably the best little period he has had all season, and I wish I owned him then. He got 11.25 points per game from an XGI of 2, which is ridiculous. He got 5 goals and 2 assists, so 7th for XGI. So it's starting to slip down that table. Still 1st for goals and 3rd for assists, which is actually better than where he was 4th. And 0.49 XGI per 90, so about the same. So he was performing, in terms of underlying stats, exactly the same, but just converting at an even better rate, which is probably where, a lot of people were saying, like, oh, this is unsustainable. He could still score points, just not maybe at that incredible rate. Yeah. What he's now done, unfortunately, though, is dropped off in everything. Yeah. So he now has 1.75 points per game from 33 to 36 of the last 4. XGI of 0.81, which is, a quarter-ish of, or a third of what he had in the 4 preceding that, which puts him 45th in the list of midfielders, by the way, which is terrible. And we know he's got no goals and no assists. I tried to find a good reason for this. I know Antonio's come back, but Antonio played when Lingard got really good points in 22 to about 28, I think it was. So I don't know if that's solid. We know Declan Rice hasn't been around, so West Ham maybe have fallen off a bit, but Lingard did well then too. Jarrod Bowen's been in and out. Looking at other players who've played, we mentioned Jarrod Bowen, who has a better XGI than Lingard in the last 4. Ben Rama does, Fornals does, and even Soucek has the same XGI. So the only real thing I could find is in the last match versus Brighton, and I think he played there before as well with Antonio, he's moved into this 10 role rather than being wide. The heat maps, in that period when he was doing amazing, I think notionally he was kind of starting up front with Bowen or with other people. but dropping wide into channels. So that's why he took most of his touches, but maybe then being able to burst into the box and finishing things off or creating stuff. Well, and we know as well he was playing amazing, so things were converted at a crazy rate. But now he's playing behind Antonio at number 10, a few little touches in the box, but most of them really in that traditional 10 position. So if he's not creating chances, no assists from that period, not too many chances created, I believe, according to your table, 5. Maybe he's just really pulled himself out of getting into goal-scoring positions. Personally, I still think he looks really good on the eye.
Yeah.
So there might still be something there.
He almost
this has flipped me from wanting him to not wanting him.
I mean, there's little things as well, like in the Brighton game. He, another day he would have got an assist from a penalty. I don't think he would have taken. Was Rice on the pitch then? But Rice is the penalty taker.
Would Antonio not maybe have taken it?
No. If Rice isn't on the pitch, I think Lingard's taken it whilst Antonio's been on the pitch. But Rice is the one.
Okay. I guess because Rice has been missing, yeah.
Yeah, and then it would be Lingard, I think. But yeah, I guess we'd have to see that situation. But yeah, I mean, I think as a player, if I was a West Ham fan, I'd be very delighted with Lingard. But as an FPL asset, he's not quite where we want to be. When you consider all of these players here, so we got some questions where I think we pretty much answered them, but we'll fire away anyway. FPL Ron manager, if you own Jota, who are you going to replace him with? Greenwood might be the top candidate as Manchester United face Fulham. Well, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. If it was just that single match, I would get Greenwood in definitely for Jota. But for me, I'm different considerations, and other people might think this as well. If they're Fernandes owners, they think, well, maybe we can save a bit of money and then invest that elsewhere the following week. Anyway, it gives me a bit of flexibility. He likes Willock though as well, and as we can see from the stats, 9 goal attempts, 9 shots inside the box, 6 on target. He's 4.7, not bad. Kane Aldo asks, who are the best 6.5 midfielders next 2 games? Harrison, Willock or Torres? But should he double up on? Should K double up on Harrison and Raphinha? So, yeah, I mean, if Harrison and Raphinha, I can't separate them. I love them both, but if a Leeds, I'm not going to say gun because that would be nasty, but if a Leeds, what do they have in Leeds? Pies. If a pie was held to your head and you had to decide Harrison or Raphinha, which one would you get?
I'll tell you what we have in Leeds. World-class managers and great midfielders.
There we go. If someone held a world-class manager to your head.
I have Raphinha in my team, so obviously I'm going to want to default to that naturally. If I had neither, obviously before this weekend, I would have said Raphinha. Harrison's performance was very impressive. He was probably our best player against Tottenham as well. He really has been very impressive recently. Raphinha's coming back from injury too, so maybe not quite as sharp. But I think Raphinha still looked very tasty. A few opportunities at the weekend as well where, Harrison put some long balls through. There was one, I can't remember who blocked it, but there was one off the top of my head where Raphinha had an opportunity to do very similar and it just got cut out by a defender, almost through no fault of Raphinha's, just great defending, whereas Harrison's, it wasn't cut out. So Harrison comes out just ahead of the numbers as well. But if I had to go, not what their numbers currently are, but who has the potential to really exceed that, I probably would go Raphinha. But I think it's close, and I love the idea of getting both of them, as we said earlier.
Definitely.
Especially, if you haven't got a defender or haven't got Bamford, I think it's quite nice, and therefore you and most people won't have both.
Yeah, no, I think if you're in a position to get both, do it. And it's not too late. Game Week 38 is not too late either. So I just want to answer something in the live chat. Well, I would say answer it. I can't answer it, but it's an interesting question here. In our table here, we have Harrison, Mount, Willock, whatever, and then it got under Greenwood. It's just got in brackets Mason, and they were saying why does it say that? What other Greenwoods are there? And I can't think. Can you think of any other Greenwoods?
There is a Sam Greenwood at Leeds United. He's a striker. Came from Arsenal.
Well, I've asked the right person. So, John, that answers your question. Why does it say Mason under Greenwood's name? Are there any other Greenwoods? Yes, there's Sam Greenwood at Leeds. There you go. So we've got that there.
Good striker.
So, once again, with like with the captain conversation, there is lots of options. And I think it's going to come down to not only your interpretation of stats and fixtures, but also what you want to do with your team as well. And I personally, I can just about get Greenwood in. But if I save myself 1.5 million or so, that gives me flexibility the following week. And I don't know, I penciled in Mane, but I might want to do something else. But I don't want to lock myself out of that. I don't want to go into the final Liverpool game where Liverpool have got to score a ton of goals against Palace, and I'm a Brighton fan, so I don't mind watching that. And we know that Mane and Salah are both pretty potent against Palace at times. They certainly were away this season. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at there. Yeah. So what? Yeah. After my spiel there, what are you, Jota? Who are you getting in for Jota then?
I mean, well, I spent a long time identifying it wasn't Lingard.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's useful to other people. Just like getting Lingard in, if other people have already beaten me to the getting him out before I've even got him in, then yep, fair enough. That's why you're ahead of me this season. I don't want to give it away too much because it might be my differential, but I might do not a dissimilar thing to you and use it to generate funds for options in the future, by which I mean the last week. It also a different striker. I think, what was the one? Havertz, that was the one we hadn't spoken about. I know it's not on your list. But he's probably a bit expensive, why he's not on your list. So maybe you do need a cheaper player to facilitate him. He comes out ahead of Mount for XGI in the last 6 with 3.78. Mount's was 2.93 on your graphic there.
Well, let's put him up, put the captaincy stats up again. So the XGI, he's on that list.
Oh, there you go. So, and Mins per XGI, he's got 111.1, which versus Mount, for example, is 164, but very favourable against others. So, for example, Bruno's on 109, Salah's on 96, so better. But Havertz per minute, very, very impressive. The issue really maybe is minutes. I reckon looking at, they've got match this midweek, match at the weekend, and then the final. Havertz is going to play one of these Premier League matches from the start, you would think, probably come off the bench in the other. You'd expect maybe it to be the last match of the season in preparation for the final. I would expect him to start, which is versus Aston Villa, who are relatively poor side defensively, or at least middling at the moment. This week it's Leicester. So that would be my preference if he plays the last one. His minutes per XGI, as we mentioned, are pretty crazy. And also, I think you had him very high for big chances as well. There was a nice ratio between a good XGI and high big chances, which was only bettered by Harry Kane, which possibly shows that when he is getting those chances, when he is getting that XGI, it's all coming. And we've seen the goals he scored. It's from that 9 position, often one-on-one with the goalkeeper inside the box, tucking something away. So if you think you'll get the minutes out of him, I quite like him as someone that other people won't have. Pulisic is up there as well, but I maybe just prefer Havertz.
Definitely, yeah. But extremely low owned, and they've got a lot to play for, a place in the Champions League final. And it pretty much is all up for grabs at Chelsea. I wouldn't say, unlike, say, a Liverpool or Manchester United, you can kind of guess their best team. But Chelsea, I don't know. I mean, Alonso could play. Who knows? I just can't really tell who would play in that final. Let's move on to the season ticker. Usually this is last 4. There's only 2 matches left. So next 2 fixtures. We've alluded to a lot of these. Newcastle top. They got Sheffield United and Fulham. Doesn't get better than that. West Ham, West Brom and Southampton next. Sheffield United themselves. Young Jebison. Newcastle and Burnley. And then Leeds. This is why we talk about Leeds a lot. Southampton and West Brom. The West Brom is the home game in Gameweek 38. So I would like more Leeds for that. Liverpool, Burnley and then Crystal Palace. They've got to score a lot of goals. Manchester United, Fulham and Wolves. So expecting rotation in Wolves. So it's not a case of them being high up on the ticker in terms of their assets because we're not quite sure who's going to play. So keep an eye on the team sheet with Fulham. Arsenal have got Crystal Palace and Brighton. Brighton's obviously a tough one at home. And I don't just say that because I'm biased. But it just is. Brighton and City are amongst the best defences, if not the best home defences this season. XG champions indeed. Burnley there, they've got Liverpool, that's a tough one, but then they finish off with Sheffield United. They're better away than at home at the moment. And then further down, Brighton have got City again at Arsenal. And then Villa have got Tottenham, Chelsea, Leicester, Chelsea, Tottenham, Everton, Wolves. That's a good home fixture if we think their fans and the Z-Car music is going to help. But then they got City at the end. One of the reasons I got Pickford in is because I just thought, well, at least I'm going to get save points, I hope, against City. And he had 2 good fixtures. How was I to know that surely United's Jebison would score? Southampton, okay. Leeds, West Ham. So there's some options there. But looking at that. It's your turn to pick a differential. Now, Ben, who was on the show last time, we've been talking about Harrison. This was after he's just hauled. Ben was talking about him before. So he picked Harrison last. So no pressure. Who is the best low-owned 5% or under gem for the final 2 game weeks?
Yeah, I mean, that was such a good pick. Fair play. So I looked at a few different options here. First, Alioski and Hayling for Leeds, who respectively have an XGI for the season even, 4.73 for Hayling and 3.75 for Alioski. I discounted Hayling because I think we'll play 3 at the back versus Southampton, which probably means Hayling at centre-back again, like we've just done. I think Cooper probably stays on the bench this time. I thought he would start. He didn't. I guess Bielsa's sticking for the first time. Strauch normally loses his place to Cooper, but sticking with what works, and especially for the back 3, Strauch, Llorente and Hayling is better. So Alioski will be left wing-back. So it would be Alioski out of those 2, but I think I can do better. There's the emotional pick of Aguero. You go for Aguero, see if he can't score some goals. But we've got an injury doubt. Jesus maybe is a consideration there, but I think you could do better from Man City. Speaking of which, Torres, we just don't know about his minutes. Obviously, just got the hat-trick, had great numbers, appeared on your table, so tempting. Pulisic and Havertz are both there for you, but I think Havertz is maybe a good 1-week pick. Over the 2, Leicester's one of them. I don't know if he gets a full 90, so didn't go for him. So I eventually settled on a player who I think in their own right can get us points.
Please be Dwight Gale.
Oh my goodness, can you imagine? No. It is that team.
Yeah.
But I went for someone I think who can get good points in their own right.
Okay.
But he's really going to open up your funds as well elsewhere. And as you've said, that could be really important for this last week. So I don't like picking differentials just for the sake of it. I want someone who can improve your team. So if you pick Joe Willock, you get a player who has 2.81 XGI in the last 6, possibly has the best fixtures left as the season ticket there. They're top. Sheffield United at home, Fulham away. They've got that home match engaged. Speaking about fans, right? Newcastle. Sheffield United and Fulham's defence is completely terrible. Fulham's is getting worse. Joe Willock, of course, took a penalty, although that's because, as you mentioned earlier, Ellington gave him one. So maybe can't quite rely on that. But he is scoring outside of that. My only real concern would be his minutes have been sporadic recently. There's 90, 76, but then 0, 26. Possibly he was being rotated. Hopefully he's been brought into the team now. But I think in his own right, he can get you, especially goals, maybe assists there. But what he really does at 4.7 and a silly low ownership, what is it? It is 1.1%. Is he probably gives you, close to 2 million if you're losing Jota or maybe Lingard to spend elsewhere on your squad. He could get you a Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah.
So while I am picking Willock, I'm really picking Willock plus another player to make up those points together.
Well, okay, I might get him in instead of, because you've just pointed out.
I might do it myself.
Because let's round off with our teams and stuff, because there's links in with this, because Willock is interesting for me. So this is my team for next week. Much better than last week. I've got Pickford at home to Wolves, and then Shaw, Phillips and Dallas, and then I've got Salah and Fernandes, currently captain on Fernandes, but Salah's also in the mix, and Kane is too. Son, Lingard, Chris Wood, the mighty Chris Wood, Kane and Antonio. I do fancy, even though I don't like attack and defence matchups, I do fancy Chris Wood to score. Maybe a consolation, but I do fancy him to score against Liverpool. I've got on the bench...
Liverpool's defence has been poor.
I've got Forster, Jota, who's obviously not playing, Ward and Veltman. I could do nothing. I think that's reasonable going with this and just thinking, Lingard might be back. Or Chris Wood. But I think I am going to move Jota to Harrison or Rafinha, and that will give me enough money the following week to move Fernandes to Mane, and possibly even captain Mane, but I'll probably captain Salah because he's just brilliant and on penalties. But your differential, so this is the segue bit of getting Willock in. If I got Willock in for Jota, that would enable me to upgrade Luke Shaw, who I also don't think is going to play in Game Week 38, to Alexander-Arnold. And that arguably, if it wasn't the final game week of the season, I would probably do that because I would probably prefer Alexander-Arnold long term. But if it's just 1 week, I might go for the attacking guy. The attacking guy in midfield rather than the attacking guy who's down as defender. But yeah, I could do that and get Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's only psychological. Oh, sorry, mate. You like that? I interrupted you. Just going to say, even if it's only psychological, Trent Alexander-Arnold, like you say, for 1 week, while over a long period of time, his points potential is pretty big. If you're watching the last match of the season, you need someone to do something. Liverpool concede in the first 5 minutes. That spoils your weekend. And not only that, Trent's got to go and get 2 attacking returns
it's
to
also,
make up for that.
I mean, I'm in the top 100,000. I'd like to stay in the top 100,000. It's a sort of a defensive move. If I was in the top 10k, top 5k, and I didn't have Alexander-Arnold, I'd get him in and just consolidate. But I want to make sure I'm top 100k, and I want a differential, and Mane is going to be it rather than Alexander-Arnold. So I think and also I think I prefer Harrison or Rafinha to Willock. I mean, I like all three. I mean, if I had a wild card now, I'd probably have all three, to be honest. They're all really good, and you can, bench one as your fifth midfielder. In terms of benching, either Chris Wood or Lingard, I think I'm gonna play Chris Wood, and I think I'm gonna put Lingard as my first sub. And as we've seen at the moment, we need the subs. I'm gonna do that by gum.
Just based on opposition, I would play Lingard. But then, form versus fixtures. We just showed how his form's not there. I think the fixture is attractive. You've got Antonio, but I shouldn't really change anything. Well, interesting one.
All of those comparisons.
You could, like you said, you could hold.
I could hold as well and just go into two Game Week 38 with 2 transfers. Once again, if it was longer, I would do that because I'd be setting myself up.
I guess the one thing to consider with that is, do you remember the last game week last year? Okay, we had early team news, so I had a free hit. I got very lucky. I got to build the perfect team in about 45 minutes. But even this year, what if Ollie comes out in his press conference and says, I am going to play the first team. They need those minutes ahead of the final. I want them fresh, or I want them match fit, whatever it is. That might change your Fernandes plans. I don't know if it's the best option, but having 2 transfers for the final week and maybe just a -4 for 3 could be very powerful if we get some big news.
What I've got at the moment, so the bus team, therefore, if I got run over by a bus and I was lying in my hospital and all my bones were broken, I looked at this team through my bleary, shattered eyes, I would say, I'm happy with that. Although I'm in agony, but I'm happy with that team. I might even do that. So if I forgot about it, I wouldn't mind. And it's only this is streaming on Monday night. It's Tuesday, so I might even forget. Hopefully I won't get run over by a bus. Let's move on to your team. Do you want to run through
Hope not.
who you've got, any transfer plans, and also your captaincy?
Sure. So I have Lloris in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, and Lucas Digne at the back. Salah is captain at the moment, with Son, Rafinha, and Gundogan in midfield. I do have Jota in there as well, but that's because I'm probably going to transfer him out. So just to show that's a hole I would fill. Kane vice captain up front with Patrick Bamford as well. Forster, Watkins, Ayling, and Pereira. That's Leicester's Pereira on the bench. So Pereira's probably staying there, even if he does get minutes. It's Chelsea away. He's just going to stay on my team to the end of the season and waste my money, really, isn't he? Luke Ayling versus Southampton. Could play him. Played him against Burnley. Don't know. Slightly less confident of a clean sheet away against Southampton. They could be very dangerous against us with the pressing. We'll see. I'm playing Bamford. I think he starts. Rodrigo comes off the bench and probably scores 2 goals again. But Bamford, away from FPL, Bamford does a very important job for Leeds. Rodrigo could maybe start at 10 with Click is now out for the season. He's gone on international duty early. So maybe, but I think it'll probably be Roberts. And Bamford, 60 minutes before Rodrigo can come in and run behind like he did this week, especially against a team like Southampton. I think we need Bamford to occupy their centre-backs. So what I'll probably be looking at doing, I think captain stays on Salah for me. I don't have Fernandes, for example. I'm either looking to get Greenwood for Jota for that Man United. It's not really coverage. I think Greenwood is a very good pick in his own right, as we covered earlier. Or the other player I've talked about a lot tonight is I want Antonio and I don't have him. So Watkins to Antonio is a very nice swap. I keep Jota in the team. He goes on the bench. Antonio plays instead. Or then my final option, my differential, Willock. I do Jota to Willock. Maybe I still do Watkins to Antonio, and that gives me that money, which is, my team is one of the reasons I was looking at Willock, because it really does open some doors for that last week, I think. And he could get, double haul himself if he's lucky.
Yeah, it's one of the, I guess it's a similar issue that I've got in that you're planning for game week 38, but at the same time, you've got to think of the game week that's ahead of you. And obviously making that move to someone like Willock now, he's got a great fixture. And you've got Jota there. And also you want Antonio. Or you could leave it even. But it's marrying up that game week 37 and getting game week 38 as well. So what I'm started doing a bit more this season is think of the game week ahead of me. And I couldn't do it last week because I was just so low because of the building for the previous double before. So I had to take my medicine there. But this one, I think I can attack it a bit more with a Harrison or a Rafinha or a Willock, and then just see what I can get for the following week.
Could always do Bamford to Antonio and Jota to Harrison just for that sideways move that I'm not sure is the one. But what would you do with that? You've got Jota. I think I've got about 0.5 in the bank. What would you go and do with that?
I would definitely remove Jota there because you've already got Pereira who you're not keen on, who's got 2 poor fixtures, and Gundogan, great player, but you did never know. And also Brighton at home are tough. So but I mean, it was speculated. I think it was Anna who's on Twitter. She's really good to follow, by the way. I retweet a lot of her stuff. She does a lot of kind of stat stuff, and prediction stuff, and the feeling is that the Brighton game might bizarrely be a precursor for the Chelsea game because you're going up against a really tough defence. And so the feeling is there could be a very strong team against Brighton and less so in the final game week. In which case Gundogan will probably play, I would think. I mean, it's hard to pin your hopes on a Man City player. What I would do, I just see a red flag there. I don't know what's going to happen in game week 38. My instinct is to remove Jota, and I think your idea of Willock is a good one because Willock's better than a non-playing Jota. It's better than Watkins. I would probably do that. I would do that because that gives you more flexibility. But I think Watkins to Antonio is good. I think that's a really good move, and then just bench Jota and then do what you like with him next time. But I think the Willock sounds really, it would give you a lot of more money. I think.
It's attractive. And you mentioned Gundogan as well. I think Gundogan's kind of a holdover from previous teams. If I picked a team now, I wouldn't have him. But I'm not going to waste too much trying to get rid of him. No. I might, I could even bench him if I didn't fancy him.
No, for this game, if you say he doesn't play, doesn't start, and doesn't get any minutes, you got Hayling off the bench against Southampton, so that's fine. I just think that if there's another one of your players doesn't turn up, Bamford, for example, for some reason, or Luca Dean, I don't know. These are players that are nailed on, but there might be an issue that we don't know about. We didn't know about Jota being out for the season like this time.
That's a good point.
So you might need someone other than Watkins. So that's why I just think Jota to Willock or Watkins to Antonio. I don't think you go wrong with either of those, but I can't think of anything else really.
I wouldn't hate holding Watkins. Like I said, I'd rather have Antonio, but I don't think his chances of getting a return against Tottenham are 0, especially if Grealish does come back in. I mean, we've seen Watkins being the creator, so I don't hate having him. No. But I think I'll do something to try and just strengthen the 11. I think for this week.
Yeah. And neither of us have got Greenwood, and I'm not going for Greenwood, even though I think Fulham is a great home fixture. I just don't know whether he's going to start both, and I don't know what sort of team is going to turn up against Wolves, and I don't know how Wolves are going to be against whatever team Manchester United put out for them.
I guess if I did do Jota to Greenwood though, and anyone else in a similar position to me, I would then have say West Brom for Luke Ayling in the last week. So I could, if I needed, bench Greenwood. I mean, maybe hope he doesn't get 5 minutes. I could bench him, start him, expect him to not get any points. There could be a decent 1 week punt in there. I think realistically, it's players I want. Greenwood 1 week. Could even captain him, but I'll do Salah. Willock and Antonio were probably the people on my list that I'm really thinking about.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully we've given lots of people some thoughts. I think with our teams, I think things that we're thinking about, particularly Jota replacements and captaincy, I think a lot of other people listening and watching will be going through, like, who do you place Jota with? You've got all these options here, and I don't think you're going to really go terribly wrong with any of them really. So I can see myself with Harrison, but if I don't, and I think other people will go through that as well, they think, or slum it with Rafinha, who's great, or slum it with Willock, who's great. Who knows? Game week 38 might see Dwight Gale there somewhere. Just before we go, just wanted to say a lot of the stuff we've been there on the members area. There's all Opta-driven stats there, so tons of that there. If you have liked this episode, do press like. We've had over 700 people watching, but only 80 likes. So press the like button. Don't smash it. Just gently press it and give us a little like.
Maybe it's the guest that makes us do.
Maybe it is. Someone just that second there, someone pressed like. So well done, whoever did that. But also do remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also wherever you receive your podcasts. But in the meantime, Seb, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me, and back over to you, I guess.
And then back over to me again. And goodbye all.